Illinois U.S. Senator Dick Durbin responds to the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The vocal critic, of Russian President Vladimir Putin died today in a Russian prison at the age of 47. Calling Navalny's death mysterious, Durbin says that we need to keep funding Ukraine's fight against Russia. He says it's even more important the U.S. continues standing up to Russia after we learned this week about a new space weapon the Russians are preparing.
Is there any question whether Putin's our buddy or not? He's not. His views of the world are inconsistent with the values of the United States.
Now, the Senate recently passed legislation with broad bipartisan support providing aid to Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel. But House Speaker Mike Johnson has dismissed this legislation. Durbin also sponsored a bipartisan bill today renaming a street in Washington near the Russian ambassador's residence after Navalny. Well, two officials